What's that?
You had a lot of fun doing it last week with us.
Oh, yeah. That was kind of crazy with Mr. Vogelstein?
David Vogelstein,
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
He's a funny character. You guys been friends for a while?
Gosh, yeah. It's from the gym from a long time ago.
All right. Seems like a really nice guy.
He is.
He's got a great sense of humor.
Yeah, he's in the paper all the time because he's always representing all these.
Yeah, no, I've seen his name a lot. Yeah.
All right, well, let's try him on this.
Hopefully he will answer. So we communicated by text just about 45 minutes ago, so
okay.
I'm assuming what I'll do is he doesn't answer for some reason. John, you there? Hello? Oops,
That's kind of weird.
yeah, that's weird. Let me.
We will try you right back.
Bruce?
There we are. Hey, it's Bruce and Edward Brown. How are you doing, John?
Hey, good. How's it going?
Good, John. Thanks for joining us.
You've been on the show before, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Last year?
Yeah.
Well, almost exactly a year ago, I looked at the file.
So I was telling John that we'd go into some discussion about wild cards and division matchups possible, and maybe MVPs and disappointments and rookie of the years. All the general stuff, John. I think you'd enjoy it.
That's fine. You doing the Giant stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I think because the Giants are such an interesting story, even though this is a national show, don't you think, Edward?
Yeah.
We should
Because
definitely.
the wild card is so close.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me pull up the chair here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we do the first 2 minutes just kind of an introduction, so.
You don't have to worry about that.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, we'll get that out of the way.
Okay, I'll be right back.
You got it.
Okay. There we go. Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. You know our show. It's where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Bruce McGowan, longtime sports radio personality. Today's show is going to be special. Why is that, John?
Well, that's actually, we're going to talk to John. John Shea, who is a longtime Bay Area baseball writer. And I say Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, but he does cover the national scene as well. So he's going to give us an overview of the playoffs and the wild cards and maybe some MVP possibilities and Rookie of the Year possibilities and disappointments and surprises. And we're going to have some fun sort of wrapping up the regular season here as it closes into the final few days.
Yeah, the wild card is actually more exciting than the regular teams that have already won it, because they won it by 7 games, 9 games.
Well, look at the Chicago Cubs, a 19-game lead over the St. Louis Cardinals, and then in the National League or in the American League, the Texas Rangers clinched a while back. They lead the Seattle Mariners by 9.5. So there's not a lot of drama right now in the races, but the wild card chases are interesting.
Yeah, it'll see. Well, hopefully, come on, Cubbies, right?
Yes, I'd like to see the Cubs and Red Sox. I've said it before.
Yeah.
Two great baseball cities, 2 of the best ballparks in America, and 2 fan bases that just deserve, well, especially the Cubs. They really deserve it. I mean, the Red Sox have had 3 championships, so they're like the Giant fans. They've got their fix in, and now they're expecting more. They're greedy for more. Let the Cubs win it all this year.
It's actually the fans, not so much the team itself.
That's right.
Some of these are like Chris Bryant's only been around for a couple of years.
Yeah. Let the fans enjoy it. The curse of the belly goat has lasted long enough.
That's true. All right, yeah, too bad Ernie Banks isn't going to get us.
Yeah, that's a shame.
All right, so each commercial break, we're going to have some sports trivia questions. World Series is going to be our theme.
That. I like that, yeah.
We'll do pretty well on that.
Okay.
This segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, providing mortgage investments that are still currently yielding over 8%. You got to check them out. Doesn't get any more conservative than that. Their website is pacificprivatemoney.com. Don't touch that down. When we come back, we're going to have baseball sports writer John Shea on the line with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't go anywhere.
All right. You with us, John?
Yeah, hey, Dad.
All right. We're just
just
about
going to
ready to
save the
start.
file here.
So you going out to the game tonight?
I was going to. We might take a pass all of a sudden. I can just maybe that's all 3 Dodgers games.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm going to try to get out to tomorrow night's game. I got to go to the 49ers on Sunday, but tomorrow night's game should be fun. And tonight, I guess Bumgarner's going for the Giants. Or is it tomorrow night? Tomorrow night he's going for the Giants. Cueto's pitching tonight. That's right. So that'll be interesting. Okay. Are they keeping you busy? I was talking to Bruce Jenkins the other day. Man, gosh, you guys are having to do a little bit more work than ever before because the staff is smaller. But it just seems like you got to. The Chronicle Sporting Green still seems like a pretty good, of all the sections of the newspaper, it seems like the best section.
Yeah, it seems like we kind of save them every day.
Yeah. No, I still enjoy reading it.
Well, especially when you have
They got some issues, but
Well, you're hanging in there.
especially with the wild card, and then the Raiders probably will be doing fairly well.
Yeah, it'll be fun with the Raiders this year.
Okay.
the Warriors.
And the Warriors,
Warriors,
of
of
course.
course.
I was at the media day on Monday. That was a zoo. It was amazing.
Oh, that.
250 media people, and the Washington Post and the New York Times are going to have a correspondent with the team through the entire season. 2 national papers.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, shouldn't talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Again, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Bruce, who do we have on the phone?
Oh, we got a good friend of ours, John Shea, who is from the Bay Area and has been covering baseball in the Bay Area for, first of all, the Marin Independent Journal, and now for the last, I think it's been almost 20 years with the San Francisco Chronicle. John, welcome to Sports Econ 101. And as Edward was mentioning in our opening, not a lot of drama with the division races, but the wild card chases are kind of crazy. Let's talk first about the National League with the Mets seemingly in the driver's seat for the top spot, but the Giants and Cardinals right there fighting for the number 2 position. I mean, this is going to get crazy down the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, you're right. These wild card races are bizarre this year. Most years you look at which team wins the most. This year it's I think which team will lose the least.
Yeah, it's crazy because every time St. Louis loses, the Giants can't seem to gain any ground on them.
Yeah, it's been like that for the last couple of weeks. But last year you had Pirates and Cubs. They were the 2 wild card teams, and they checked in with 98 and 97 wins.
Wow.
And this year, nobody in the National League wild card race will win 90.
That's amazing. You know what amazes me also?
A mediocre field. And,
Yeah.
Well, it seems the Mets have a little bit of a handle on things now. And
Well, they're
they've
hitting.
really been one of the best teams in baseball since August 20th when they got healthy with Anderson and Cespedes coming back.
Yeah.
Their rotation is the pitch right now. Everyone's hurt.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter because the Cardinals and Giants are just falling over themselves.
Yeah, what's going on with the Cardinals, by the way? I mean, they have a very good record on the road. They're 15 games over 500, but at home, they're coming into Friday night's game or Thursday night's game as we speak when we were broadcasting this or recording this. 34 wins, 43 losses. I think that's one of the worst records in baseball on the home field. What's going on?
They're usually a pretty good home team.
Yes, they are. What is happening there, John?
Yeah, St. Louis is supposed to be the mecca of baseball.
Yeah.
The place where everybody loves to play. The place that the fans never boo you, always support you. And it's a positive vibe and all that.
Maybe too many mosquitoes this year during the summertime.
They've got to win a game at home. And it's almost as if they'd rather finish second in this thing to the Mets so they can play in New York rather than having to play as bizarre as that sounds.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they have some real issues with pace running, defense, the pitching. I mean, it's just not a typical St. Louis team that can beat you in many ways. It's a team that last year won 100, and this year is losing a lot more games than it's winning in September. And if it gets to the wild card, it's gonna, they're just gonna back in. I mean, Molina has always been the heart and soul of that. But you might see maybe the end of the line. I mean, he's hitting 300, but he's not that dynamic overall player that he once was. Who knows? He might lose the Gold Glove for the first time to Buster Posey, who's having a real nice defensive year, though he's struggling down the stretch like a lot of Giants are.
Well, speaking of hitting 300, it cracks me up is Daniel Murphy going from the Mets to Washington, and isn't he leading the league?
Well, he's up there, and he's been up there. LeMahieu of the Rockies might be a little bit ahead of him, but Murphy's top 2, top 3, and definitely in the MVP race.
And did they get rid of him because of those errors in the World Series? I mean, sometimes they just, maybe it's coincidence, but it seems like he was the hero in the playoffs, and then he gets to the World Series, makes a couple of errors that,
Well, they didn't think he would be that kind of player as he was in October over a full season, because he never was. And B, he was a free agent, and the Mets weren't going to pay what Washington was willing to pay. Washington had a hole, and
Gotcha.
the Mets figured they could suck it up without him, with a full year of Cespedes and all these other guys, and a full year of all that great pitching that they don't have.
Yeah, it just seems kind of coincidence that, literally the guy, right after he makes these errors, boom, he gets traded away.
Crazy.
Yeah. Bruce, you remember the old Charlie Finley days, right?
Oh, yeah.
Made an error and he was fired on the spot.
Yeah.
That's right. Mike Andrews I think he made 3 errors in a game, and Charlie literally pulled him off the team, and the players were so upset that I guess they stood up for Mike Andrews and got him back on the team, and sort of in a move of solidarity. Well, John Shea, who is from the San Francisco Chronicle, covers the Giants. Now, I got to ask you about the Giants because they've been the most confounding team, and we here in the Bay Area have seen a lot of them. The first half of the season, they had the best record in baseball, and the second half of the season, they've had the worst record in baseball. I mean, it's not just one thing. I know the bullpen has been struggling, and the hitting has been inconsistent, but this is a team that won 3 World Series in a space of 5 years, and there are a lot of the same guys that are still around. Why have they struggled so much in the second half here, John?
Well, I don't think you can blame the rotation. I mean, they did scuffle out of the break. If you remember, they got swept by the Padres, and then they went to Boston and New York and didn't fare well there, and it just rolled into one big giant piece of crud here. I mean, they just never recovered. Just once in the second half have they won as many as 3 in a row. And the rotation has been good lately, all the way down to margin, really the fourth time. Gardner, of course, and Cueto and Matt Moore, who they picked up from Tampa Bay at the trade deadline. But their offense and relief corps has been pretty pathetic overall, to be honest. Posey just a couple of home runs in the second half. Pence has been up and down, and Hammock, all these guys who have track records of consistency over periods of a long stretch just aren't doing it in the second half, and the bullpen has really been bad. I mean, record bad, with Casilla, the closer, who has lost his job. Now it seems every night Bruce Bochy goes to a different closer. It seems to be Sergio Romo now, but he hasn't had chances in the last couple of days. So who knows? It's the weakest bullpen Bochy has ever had down the stretch for a team that could make the playoffs. The Giants were always full of issues. In 2010, they didn't clinch until the final day. 2012, they were last in the majors in home run. 2014, they were a wild card team, and really at the end, they only had Bumgarner, and nobody else could help them on the mound. And all those 3 teams won it all. So this year, they always say, "Here we go again," but they're kind of running out of time here. They have a lot of deficiencies, and this time, for the first time in 4 even years, they might not do it this time. The Cubs and all these other teams so much better, and right now they're second in the 3-team wild card race with only 2 spots, and they have 4 games to go. But who's to say they can even win half of them? Not within a 500 team in the second half.
I mean, they've definitely had some injuries, but is there some personal stuff going on behind the scenes that we don't know about? Sometimes guys, guys like having personal problems at home, or financial problems, and somehow we find out about.
I'm not sure about that, but covering both teams here in the Bay Area, the Oakland A's certainly, they had clubhouse fights. First we go back to Finley again, it was about clubhouse fights. But
Billy Butler,
Billy Butler and Danny Valencia went at it, and there are a lot of I guys, kind of number guys on that team, and it doesn't have that unity it had back in the Giambi years, and even when Bob Melvin first took over and kind of united that team with some real good players. Just 2 years ago, they had the best record in baseball for most of the summer, and then back into the.
Who was it? Pete Rose or Steve Garvey who said, "Don't care about the name on the back; it's the name on the front." Right?
Tommy Lasorda.
Tommy Lasorda.
Oh, there you go.
I think a few of these guys.
One of those guys.
Okay, I tell you what, guys.
I think with the A's, I don't think there's any suspension. I mean, there are some issues. I mean, if you want to nitpick, they have a third base, Romero Kelly, who hasn't had a lot of experience, who who I'm guessing could easily be replaced. They have a lot of older guys in the bullpen who easily could be replaced.
You're talking about the Giants, right?
Build that bullpen.
Right.
Hey, John,
you're going to have to find a left fielder with power.
John, stay with us for a minute. We have to cut to a quick commercial break here. All right, so here's our first trivia question. John, if you know the answer, don't say anything yet. We'll let you answer when you come back. We're talking World Series now. What pitcher holds the record for pitching 14 innings in one World Series game? All right?
It's a good one.
Don't touch that down. Sports Econ 101 is going to be right back.
Okay. You got me on that one. I remember one of the things, John, it seems like with the Giants bullpen, they're missing a guy that we talk about Affeld, but how about Yasmero Petit, who picked up a lot of middle innings, and you remember in the playoffs 2 years ago, I think he had something like 8 scoreless innings or 6 scoreless innings against Washington. You remember that game? I think it was the second game that they won, and that's a guy that nobody talks about, but I mean, boy, he seemed like he was a key part of that bullpen. So,
yeah. I mean, it's mostly about late release because they've had leads late enough.
Yeah.
And they've got a real poor record of overcoming deficits in the ninth inning.
Those ninth inning losses are just devastating.
They let a lot of those walk-off hit over there.
Yeah, you thought Johnny Cueto was going to be the savior.
Well, and he has been probably their most consistent pitcher. Yeah.
And Samardzija has been pitching.
Yeah, second half very well. Yeah. Okay.
All right. We want to talk about other teams in the wild card?
Yeah, let's talk about the American League though too. We haven't really gotten into that.
All right, let's go. Here we go. Well, welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here, along with Bruce McGowan. Here was our first trivia question: what pitcher holds the record for pitching 14 innings in one World Series game?
I think it had to happen before my time, but I'm not sure.
Yes, it did.
Okay, John, you want to venture a guess on that one? Because I'm stumped. I'm thinking maybe a guy like a Bob Feller or a Christy Mathewson, but
in between those two.
Okay.
It must have been Babe Ruth.
Yes, it was Babe Ruth.
Oh, there you go.
Very good.
Very good, John.
There was only one pitcher between Bob Feller and Christy Mathewson.
Was that just a guess, or did you know that one?
I didn't know that one. I guessed on that one.
But people forget that Babe Ruth was a terrific pitcher with the old Boston Red Sox before he went to the Yankees. As a matter of fact, I believe he won 20 games a couple of times. But anyway, we're talking to John.
World Series records, great ERA.
Yeah, no question.
It's amazing what he could have done.
Yeah.
He's stuck with it.
The voice of John Shea, who is joining us, a longtime sports writer and columnist for the San Francisco Chronicle, and we were talking about the wild card chases. And in the American League, it's kind of interesting too, because Toronto, again, like the Mets in the National League, they've got the upper hand. They got that great hitting, but Baltimore and Detroit, and even the Seattle Mariners, who are kind of on the fringe, Baltimore and Detroit fighting for that number 2 spot. It looks like the Birds have a little bit of an edge, but how do you see that one shaping out, John?
The American League wild card, you asked a month ago or a little bit more, and you thought Baltimore was going to win that division. And suddenly Boston streaks out and takes over in the American League East. I thought Toronto would be a little better than this, and Seattle kind of a long shot, but it's got to be. I assume Toronto's going to get one spot, and Baltimore was nobody expected to do what they did. And the reason they did what they did was, they just did a whole bunch of home runs. They have a great rotation. They had a great bullpen, but the fact that their 5 starters didn't come in day out and do the job was maybe the reason for their demise. So, hey, you know what? The second spot, it could go to Detroit or Baltimore, I think. But seems Toronto might be that first. In the National League wild card, I mean, it's like it doesn't even matter who gets it, because they'll be so taxed, and the Cubs are so well rested, and this might be a real lopsided series.
Did you see the Cubs having this kind of a season, though, John? I mean, the Cubs last year had a very good year, but they've been from the get-go just a dominant team. They had one little period, I think, of about a couple of weeks mid-season where they struggled, but since then, 101 and 57 as we speak, and they're on pace to win about 104 games, as good a season as anybody has had in recent years.
We've been picking them since 1945, though, to do this kind of.
Well, they're long overdue, but did you see this coming, John? Do you think?
Like I said, they did win 97 games last year,
Yeah.
and then they had Lester, Zobrist, a very valuable, versatile player. He's taken over second base. Don Lackey. I mean, the rotation, you could have 2 or 3 Cy Young candidates in that rotation. And then at the trade deadline, they made the deal with the Yankees. Picked up the closer, and I mean, they have no weakness, and they'll only defeat themselves.
Boy, the record at home is amazing too. Isn't it 57-24 at home? And we saw a recent series with the Giants. The Giants played them very tough, by the way. Won 3 out of the 7, and could have easily won the 4th one had they not blown the lead in the 9th or 10th inning. But the Cubs just seem to have the magic going at home, and it reminds me very much. You remember 1993, John, when the San Francisco Giants, under first-year rookie manager Dusty Baker, won 103 games in the regular season and were just dominant at home. And I'm just wondering if they're going to be able to carry this over into the postseason, because it's not how you're playing in if you have a great season, that's fine during the regular season, but it's how you get hot during the playoffs. As you said, the Giants were not the best team in those years that they won the championships, 2010, 12, and 14, but they got hot at the right time. So maybe the Cubs will continue this. I don't know.
Yeah, and we've seen it both ways. You remember the great Marusa teams in Oakland, where sometimes they had that extra rest and they didn't look so good. Sometimes they had the extra rest and they looked great. Sometimes it came down to the wire, and if you remember, the Giants got to the World Series twice by virtue of a wild card. So sometimes it's the hottest team, not the best team. In fact, it often is the hottest team and not the best team. It's rare that the team with the best record in baseball actually does win it all. And the Cubs, hey, what a marvelous story it would be. The year that Vin Scully signs off for the final time and the Cubs win a World Series, who could have thought of that?
Yeah, that's a nice story. And by the way, Vin Scully will broadcast his final game in San Francisco, and it's an interesting little sidelight to this. He grew up a Giants fan because he kind of felt sorry for the Giants back in the 1930s, and he was a big fan of Millot. So it's kind of fitting, isn't it, John, that he's doing a Giant-Dodger game, and I guess both the local San Francisco TV and radio outlets are going to have him on the air for a full inning, sort of as a tribute to Vin Scully.
Yeah, the radio station and the local regional outlet, 3rd inning, all Vinny all the time. But you know what? I prefer 9 innings, so I've been going that route lately. You're right about growing up a Giants fan. It was October 2nd, 1936, when he was an 8-year-old kid. Remember that story he tells so eloquently that he kind of got hooked because he saw, in front of a storefront, the score of that day's World Series game, and the Yankees blasted the Giants 18-4. Young Vinny felt sorry for the Giants and befriended them and took them in and supported them, and he didn't live that far from the Polo Grounds. 80 years later to the date, October 2nd, 2016, he'll call his last game, and it'll be a Giants game.
Wow.
Can you imagine being for 67 years?
I know that's scary. I mean, his first year broadcasting was the year I was born. I mean, that's what scares me. My gosh,
Well, he's good. He's still great. And the great thing about Vinny is he's got no color guy, no
That's true.
No analyst. I mean, who would it be? It was some guy who said, "Hey, I played in the '80s. Let me tell you how it is." And Vinny covered Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reed's the integration of baseball. He started in 1950, and in Brooklyn, moved to Los Angeles. He's seen it all. He doesn't need anybody to tell him that, hey, I played the game and this is how it is. It's just great listening to Vinny. All 9 innings, no interruptions from anyone else. Nobody, sponsoring some bobblehead giveaway tomorrow. No corny fan shot. Well, they have a few, but not many.
Well, I was reading that the first.
It's great listening to him, not in and nothing else.
I was reading that the first game that he broadcast was a spring training, and the coach of the other team was Connie Mack, who was born during the Civil War.
Wow. That's amazing. The thing I like about Vinny, too, and John, I'm sure you've talked to him many times because you've covered so many games, and we've gotten to know him slightly. His daughter actually worked at the radio station where I worked for many years in San Francisco. And Vinny is amazing, even in his later years, and he's going to turn 89 later this year. He remembers everybody's name, and he's so gracious and such a gentleman. There's no pretension to this guy, and people also seem to forget he was a great national announcer for the NFL and for golf. So for Vin Scully to get the recognition that he got with the Congress, actually, I guess they gave him a little notice the other day in the U.S. Congress. It's well deserved. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, and, we had a conference call with writers and Vinny last week. It went about an hour long.
Wow.
And, there's 20, 25 guys asking questions. For whatever reason, I was asked the first question. So the guy gets on and says, first question, John Shea, San Francisco Chronicle. And I immediately congratulate Vinny on a wonderful career and so-and-so. And you know what he says? He says, oh, John, bless your heart. Nice to hear your voice. This Scully just told me, nice to hear my voice?
Yeah.
What's wrong with this picture?
Well, that's the guy. That's the way he is. Yeah.
It goes back to, hey, he remembers everybody.
He does.
The concessionaires, the people in the elevator, the people who park his car, and that's what makes him a favorite, at all times.
And apparently, there's no other side to him. That's what you see is what you get.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing.
When he pays his bill over the phone, he's like that.
The thing that always amazes me about going to a Dodger game too in LA, and you've been to plenty of them, and so have I over the years, a giant Dodger game, is that when you go out into the stands and out into the concessionaires, you hear his voice on the in-house PA, because the fans that can't see the game, whether they're standing in line for the popcorn or the peanuts or the hot dogs, they want to know what's going on. And there's Vin Scully's voice, announcing loud and clear. It's just.
And the story that Vinny tells about the evolution of the transistor radio that kind of became popular in the 50s. Just shortly before the Dodgers moved to LA, and by the time he was there, it was like an education to fans who might not have known who these Dodgers were from Brooklyn. Obviously, they knew the stars, but who were these other guys? It's not like they had their names on the back of their jerseys. And he said the voice could just be heard throughout Dodger Stadium because every other fan had a transistor radio if she was listening to it. And that sort of evolutionized the sport in a lot of ways. There was nothing better in the 50s, 60s, and into the 70s. The backyard barbecues and the transistor radio, listening to the ball game, and City's voice was such a big part of all of that.
And of course, Vin Scully at that time and Jerry Doggett, his sidekick, were really the only way a lot of people kept up with the games, because the Giants and Dodgers, and I'm not sure about the other teams, only carried up until the mid-1960s, and this is about 66, only carried about 9 games on television, and they were usually when the Giants were playing in L.A. or the Dodgers playing up here. I mean, that was, so you had to keep up with it on the radio.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid, they had a real powerful station in Los Angeles, AFI.
Yeah.
And late at night, say the Dodgers would play a night game, the Giants would play a day game. Late 60s, the Giants would always finish second, 5 straight years. They were the wild card team before the wild card. They were
yeah, exactly. Hey, John, stay with us one more time. We're going to go a quick commercial break. So, World Series, we're talking here. What do Gene Tennis and Andrew Jones have in common? All right?
Okay.
Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
Good stuff, John. How's your family doing?
Oh, good, man. Just, I don't know if you heard the little phone call at the beginning of our little interview process.
Yeah.
Came in and left. I don't know if you heard any of that.
No, do you have 2 kids or 1?
Well, one. She's. You ever heard that Marin Rowing Association?
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. She's just getting involved in that.
Well, that's great. How old is she?
14.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, not much older than my daughter. I got an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
It's the best. Is it? And now you've just been married the one time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're like me.
I have an older boy who's moved on. But,
oh, you really?
Yeah.
How old was he?
Down at Carlsbad.
Down at Carlsbad, huh? How old is he?
Well, he's 30.
Wow. Okay.
He's a bit older. Now, you have the one child.
Just the one. And Edward here has 2 that are, one is out of college and one's just getting started in college, right?
She's a sophomore.
Sophomore, okay, yeah. All right.
Okay, we just have one more big segment, all right?
Thanks so much for doing this, John. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. One more time. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. And here is our trivia question. What do Gene Tennis and Andrew Jones have in common?
I have an idea about that, but I'm going to let John take a guess at it first. John Shea, our guest.
Well, my only guess would have to do with youth.
Would have to do with what?
Youth.
Youth.
such a young. I mean, this was a little older.
Okay, so
Probably
this is
3 home runs.
3 home runs in a game?
Home runs,
close.
games.
You're very, very close. Okay.
MVPs in the World
No,
Series?
It wasn't obviously 3 home runs.
Okay.
No, it wasn't 3 home runs. Okay, so
4 home runs in the World
no,
Series.
yeah.
No.
Okay, so this is Gene Tennis in 1972
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Andrew Jones in 1996.
4. Well, I know Gene Tennis had 4 in the '72 World Series and was the MVP when the A's beat the Cincinnati Reds. But 1990. Did you
I
say?
mean, you guys are really close, so I'll just
Okay,
give it to you.
okay.
They both hit home runs in their first 2 consecutive at bats.
Wow. Oh, interesting. Okay. And Gene Tennis, interesting. He was kind of a journeyman player in '72, and that World Series, he had such a great series, and he actually came on after that and had 2 or 3 really good years and signed a free agent contract with San Diego and had a pretty good career.
Yeah.
So that sort of jump-started his career. Well, John Shea is joining us. And John, we haven't talked about MVPs this year because that's an interesting topic. One guy who intrigues me, and I know he's not going to get the MVP just because he's playing for a mediocre team, is this Nolan Arenado of Colorado, who is putting up some great numbers. I'm looking at the home run numbers and also the RBIs, and he's right up there among the leaders. But the guy in the American League that always is fun to watch is Mike Trout down with the Angels, another bad team. So I would think it's not going to be either one of those guys because they're both playing for mediocre or bad teams. Venture a guess as to who might be the MVP candidate in either league?
You know, there's such a philosophical debate about all of this, and you give it to Trout every year because he's the best player every. Well, if that were the case back in the day, A's would have 15 of these, right? But he only won 2,
Yeah.
which was kind of ridiculous. But Trout having another great year on a team that's doing nothing, and the same thing with Arenado in the National League. Now, I guess I'm more traditionalist. I mean, if you want to have a player of the year, want to have a separate, best hitter, best overall, that's fine. But most valuable to a team that, was on the verge of getting to the playoffs or got to the playoffs is kind of the way I measure it. And, I prefer Chris Bryant, the Cubs, and because it's I mean, Andre Dawson, there are some players who won the award on bad teams, but maybe it's in a year that maybe there wasn't anybody outstanding that could have won it otherwise. But I think when you have a Chris Bryant having just a wonderful overall season for a great team like Chicago, I would suggest, I was leaning toward Jose Altuve. Then we got to September, and Houston took it to Altuve, not as good, but maybe Mookie Betts with Boston. A great team, fabulous player. David Ortiz, real good season as well. But I think I kind of favor those guys rather than just the number of guys.
I like your philosophy because I kind of think the same thing. It's like when you say most valuable player, you have to do something for your team that gets your team to the next level. If you always stay in the cellar, it doesn't matter how good you are. Again, like you say, player of the year, I could see that being 2 different awards.
Yeah, so maybe the MVP is more of a team award because your team has to be good
Exactly.
for you to win the thing. Right?
Yeah, another guy who really intrigues me, and you mentioned his name, David Ortiz. There was a great piece in SI, Sports Illustrated recently about him, and he's 40 years old. He's hitting .316, and they were asking him, why are you leaving now when you're still putting up the great numbers? And he said, well, it's time. I'm kind of at that point where I'm tired of traveling. He certainly made enough money. But David Ortiz, greatest designated hitter of all time in your mind, John?
Well, I guess, with Frank Thomas a designated hitter, you talk about the Hall of Famers.
Did Ricky
have to
Henderson?
say, Edgar Martinez, obviously, but Ortiz, in terms of what he's done for this particular market and the 3 World Series and the postseason clutch hitting, and yes, he's a DH, and you kind of have to do a whole bunch more than any other hitter because it's not a position. It's just 4 pitch hits a day. So I look at it as you've really got to outdo the competition. And I think he has to make himself Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah, it's been a fun time for the Red Sox, too. You mentioned how they have come on really strong in the second half, and we talked about it earlier, Boston versus the Cubs in the World Series. Now, would that be perfect? I mean, Ortiz is is retiring with a team that goes to the World Series again, and the Cubs finally get in there after 71 years. I mean, I think baseball fans who are real hardcore fans would love to see this matchup.
Yeah, it's almost too much to bear, isn't it?
Yeah. It's almost like someone paid them to do that. You know?
Get in, but when you have Boston and the Cubs,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be as dramatic if Boston still had this drought going on. We in San Francisco know about droughts.
Yeah.
Nothing was won in San Francisco at all until 2010, and all the Hall of Famers they had in the 60s, it didn't matter because there were so many other breeds. And it had to go back to New York. It's the last time they actually won one. And the Cubs, more than 100 years from there. The White Sox won one in 05, and that was rare. But this would even be bigger. Last time I was in Chicago was when I covered the early September Giants Cubs series at Wrigley, and just walking around town every day, Michigan Avenue, I didn't see any White Sox here. And the White Sox had a pretty good start to this. It was all Cubs. That town is just really Cubs crazy right now, and there are no seats available, and that ticket is not going to be cheap for that World Series.
Boy, that's at least. And another city.
Don't forget Cleveland.
I was going to say two cities actually. Cleveland's having a great year, and the Washington Nationals. The Washington has not had a team in a World Series since 1933. So, I mean, Dusty Baker has got a great chance at getting there, and so do the Cleveland Indians, who have sort of been under the radar this year, even in their own city. They don't get sellout crowds. Has Cleveland been, in your mind, one of the bigger surprises in baseball this year?
Yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. When you look at that division, you always think about Detroit and Kansas City coming off the two World Series. But, Cleveland has really put it together nicely.
Well, don't forget the Cavs.
Don't forget who?
Don't forget the Cavs were, kind of taking Cleveland by storm.
Well, and the Indians have picked it up. Yeah, it's becoming a city of champions, and Cleveland sort of, they call it the mistake by the lake, but it's kind of nice for those long-suffering fans. I mean, this may be a year that they squeeze in there. They're kind of a dark horse team, I would think, in the American League, though, with Boston, and Texas is having a great year too. So Cleveland's going to have a tough time, don't you think, John?
Yeah, and Cleveland right now would play Boston in a division series. Boston has everything going for it, and they might even pick up. I think they're a game up on Cleveland right now, so they could. They think if they start that thing at home, that would put Cleveland at a disadvantage. And Texas, of all teams, has the best record in the league right now. Kind of surprising. I thought Houston was going to run away with this. One of those Texas teams, but Houston's been a real disappointment, and the Angels struggling again. Seattle's making a run in this wild card race. They sort of come out of nowhere. They were really picked to be a second division team. So I mean, there are few surprises overall, because you knew the Dodgers and the Cubs, Washington, all division winners were going to be there, and you knew Texas was going to be in the race, but Cleveland is really the one team maybe that just didn't imagine. But on the other end, didn't we all think Arizona was going to be this big, glamorous, dynamic team with Zach Greinke and Shelby Miller?
Sure.
And that's probably the biggest disappointment of the 2016 season.
Well, it depends also it also depends what happens to the Dodgers, because their payroll is how big, and they always seem to get there and then fall at the last minute.
Yeah, last time the Dodgers were in a World Series was 1988. So I guess, John, if the Dodgers are going to do anything this year, this is the time to do it. They've been playing great baseball down the stretch. They seem to have relatively good pitching, and the hitting has been awesome. These last couple of months.
And Kershaw is back, and that's a huge difference. I mean, he was running away with the Cy Young Award, then he got hurt. It's on the 60-day DL, but now he's back. And they got Rich Hill from Oakland at the trade deadline, and Maeda. I mean, they're for a team that had no rotation for the longest time. They're pretty set for the postseason, and their offense has really come alive. It started hitting once Kershaw came out in mid-season, and their bullpen obviously is up. So I think it's. The Cubs are not going to walk away in this postseason. There are some teams that could upset them pretty easily. Dodgers have everything going for them, and Dave Roberts, as a rookie manager, has done a real nice job, especially with Puig, bringing him in and kind of backing him off and making it more business-like for him instead of just his personal playground where he can come and leave when he chooses. I think he's a lot more mature, and as we saw in that Giants series, we can kind of take over a game.
I know one person in this world who is really rooting for Chicago, and that's Steve Bartman.
Oh,
I mean,
wherever he's hiding out.
Maybe he'll get forgiven, right?
Yeah. That's a great story though. That 2000, it's not a great story for Cubs fans, but it just is. We talk about it still. So here we are, 13 years later, and Dusty Baker doesn't like to talk about that at all.
Wouldn't it be something if Dusty Baker met the Cubs in the NLCS, beat the Cubs? He was the manager of that Bartman game in Chicago, and he's one manager with Hall of Fame potential, but just no World Series victories. Real close to 0-2.
Yeah.
Leading Game 6 in Anaheim. And,
please, that's still bad memories for me.
Yeah, and of course he was that manager in '93 when the Giants won 103 games in a second. That was 2 years before they put in the wild card, so he didn't get a chance there either.
Yeah, and of course now in Washington he's had some good teams. The Giants knocked him out in 2014 in the divisional series, and as you mentioned, with the Cubs, I mean they had some great teams that he managed there, but they couldn't get it done either. So Dusty's one of those guys. I think he needs to get a World Series championship before he retires to ensure a possible Hall of Fame spot, because he's managed for 20 years and he has some pretty good numbers in terms of wins and losses.
Yeah, and he's approaching the 2,000 win barrier, and everybody with 2,000 wins pretty much in the Hall of Fame. He's not close as in this year or next year. Bruce Bochy is, but I think that one of the reasons Baker came back, I think, is perhaps check off that final box.
And Bochy's job's not quite in jeopardy, is it?
Bruce?
Yeah. Bruce Bochy's job is not going to be in jeopardy because
no, he's signed for a few more years. When it doesn't matter how bad he or the team did this year. You look at World Series managers. There's a shelf life. They don't get rid of them right away, even 2 or 3 years out. Because of what they meant, to the city at that time. And he's such a cool character. I think he'll make a couple of coaching changes that should help him. He's had some health issues with his heart, including in this season.
Oh yeah.
But I think that he's committed to living out his contract, and that's a couple of more years after this. So I think through 18 or 19, and that'll put him well over 2003 World Series title. I mean, he's a clinch to get to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if he retired right now, I think he would.
That's it. Hey, John, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to cut to our last commercial break here. By the way, don't forget Ken Phelps for designated hitter, or Rusty Staub, or maybe even Jose Canseco.
Oh.
All right. Here's our last trivia.
Thanks so much, John, for joining us, by the way.
Really appreciate it. All right. Okay.
John Shea, the San Francisco Chronicle, our special guest. And what's our last trivia question?
Okay, last trivia question is, what player went to the plate 31 consecutive times without even one World Series hit? This is actually been over 2 years. All right. Fairly recent? Not really.
Okay.
Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be back for some closing comments.
Okay. Good stuff.
That was good.
Yeah, that was good. John, I called back.
Just wanted to thank him for
quickly here. Real fast here. Oops. Come on.
Same problem.
There we go. Hey, John. Hey, thanks so much, man. I really appreciate you doing that. And we'll probably see you out there at the game tomorrow night. Okay. Thanks, buddy. You too. Bye-bye. Good guy.
All right. There we are.
Okay. Turn that off. Okay.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan. Again, John Shea had to leave us, but we really appreciate him joining us.
Good man.
All right, here was our question. What player went to the plate 31 consecutive times without even one World Series hit?
Wow. I'm stumped.
And he had 12 plate appearances in one World Series.
Okay.
And then the next year, he went 19 more at bats.
Can you give me the years?
1934, 1935.
Wow, it had to be somebody in the Yankees then.
No, but it was an American League team.
Okay, Tigers.
Yes.
Okay. God,
I don't know this guy.
Charlie Gehringer? No.
No, him I know.
Yeah.
Marv Owen.
Oh, Marv Owen. Yeah, no, I've heard of Marv Owen. Yeah, decent player. Just had a slump for some reason in the World Series.
That's not the time to have a slump.
No, it's not. It's not. They did. I believe they won one of those World Series and lost one. That was about the same era as the St. Louis Cardinals Gas House gang with the Dean brothers, Dizzy and Daffy. Yeah. And who was the guy? Joe Medwick, I think, was one of their infielders. Yeah, they had quite a bunch of characters. Ducky Medwick and Leo DeRocher.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, so here's our thoughts for the day. Casey Stengel, this is out of in my opinion, out of a Yogi Berra book, said, the team has come along slow, but fast. Whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
And Joe Garagiola had said, baseball is drama with an endless run and an ever-changing cast.
Okay.
I thought that was pretty poignant.
Yeah.
All right. So
good guy, by the way, Joe Garagiola.
Yeah, he just passed this.
Just this last year. Yeah. I got to know him slightly. He worked with Arizona for a while. It was always fun to sit down and talk baseball with him.
Oh, yeah.
He's a good guy.
Seems like a good guy.
Yeah.
All right, so tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective. We're also going to be giving away some more. Actually, we stopped giving away those vacations because the lighthouse was getting inundated. And so they said, you know what, we have to back off.
Can I get a vacation there?
Well, you can, sure, why not? But we will be answering, we still will be asking more trivia questions, sports trivia questions.
There you go.
You know, people can still email into Edward at Sports Econ 101. So thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.
Yeah,
literally, they told me, they said, Edward, you gotta, can you back off from this?
Not many people coming out, huh?
Yeah.
That's good.
And,
I was talking to Colette. I said, would you be interested in